Hello, everyone. This is Minister William, or Reverend Will, if you please, or if you like. And I just would like to start off apologizing for the sound of last week's sermon. Um, I did not know about it until a few days later when it was brought to my attention by High Priestess Yolanda. But um, now I would like to go and for a moment of silence for prayer, meditation, or what have you. Alright, thank you. I can't remember if I said this is going to be the sermon for October 17th, 2021. And today's sermon will be the short story that I've heard before, and I liked very much, called The Beggar and the Lady. This story is connected to a sermon I did a few weeks ago, The Teacher's Hand, about how you don't know what you do how much what you do helps people, even if you think it's a little gesture. This story is along the same lines. It is a story. It is one where if you help someone, that can always wrap around back to you. All right. As a woman walked down the streets one day, she spotted a beggar. The man looked pretty old, unshaven, and ill-dressed. Every passerby looked at him with contempt, not like they had anything against him, but merely because of who he was, a filthy beggar. But when this particular woman saw him, she was filled with compassion. The beggar was inappropriately dressed for the weather, so cold. Precisely, he wasn't dressed by wrap. Precisely, he wasn't dressed by wrapped up in what looked like a coat from a very old and not too warm suit. She kindly asked the man, "Sir, are you all right?" The man looked at the woman, who clearly by her appearance was a demonstration of what people from a wealthy background looked like. The old beggar thought that she, like every other person, was mocking him. "Leave me alone," he growled. The woman did not move. Instead, to his surprise, she smiled at him and gently asked if he was hungry. "No, I've just come from dining with the president. Now go away," the beggar replied with a notable sarcasm. The woman's smile did not fade. She slid her hands under the beggar's arm and tried to pick him up. "Woman, what are you doing?" The beggar sounded annoyed. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" a police shouted, walking toward the lady and the beggar. "Not at all, officer. I'm just trying to get this man to his feet. Will you help me?" The woman replied. The policeman looked at her surprised. That man is old Jack, and he has been here for years. What have you got to do with him anyway?" "I am taking him to a cafeteria to eat something. I'm taking him to a cafeteria to eat something, and to get him out of the cold for a while," the woman answered. "Are you crazy, lady?" the homeless man resisted. "I don't want to go in there." Then he felt a strong hand, strong hands grab his other arm and lift him up. Let me go, officer. I didn't do anything. It's a good chance to feed yourself, Jack. Don't blow it, the officer advised. After a lot of difficulty, the woman and the officer managed to drag Jack into the cafeteria. It was past breakfast and too early for lunch of the day. For lunch hour of the day. The manager strolled toward the table and asked, "What's going on here, officer?" he asked. "Is this man in trouble?" "She brought old Jack in here to be fed," the police officer answered. "Not in my cafeteria. People like him are bad for business," the manager angrily retorted. "Now you know why I didn't want to come in here, woman," Jack said to the lady. "Now let me go. I never wanted to come in here in the first place." The woman turned to the cafeteria manager and smiled. "Sir, I reckon you know Eddie and the Associates, the banking firm down the street?" "Of course I do," the manager answered impatiently. "They hold their weekly meetings in one of my banquet rooms. And I guess you make a good amount of money from those meetings. Why does it concern you anyway?" "Because I am CEO of the company," the woman replied, showing no sign of pride in her statement. "Oh," was all the manager managed to say. She looked at the officer. "Would you like to join us in a cup of coffee and a meal, officer?" "No, thanks, ma'am," officer replied. "I'm on duty." "Then perhaps a cup of coffee to go?" "Yes, ma'am, that would be very nice." "I'll get your coffee for you right away, officer," the manager immediately replied. "You served him right," he said. "Oh, believe me, officer, that was not what I intended. I have reason behind all this." She stared back at Jack intently and asked, "Jack, do you remember me?" Old Jack examined her face. "Well, you do look familiar," he thoughtfully added. "Do you remember a cold and hungry girl who frequently visited this place when you worked here?" the woman asked. She has perhaps grown old, hasn't she?" The officer looked surprised. He couldn't imagine this fine-looking woman as a poor and hungry woman. "I had just graduated and had come to the city looking for a job. I didn't find one for a really long time. I was running out of cash and had been asked to vacate my apartment too. I lived on these streets for days. It was a cold month. It was the cold month of February. I still remember. And that's when I found this place. I walked in hoping to find an edible my little budget could afford." Jack's face was suddenly lit up. "Now I remember you. I used to be at the counter. You came up and asked me if you could work for something to eat. I said it was against company policy." "I know," said the woman. "Then you offered me the biggest roast beef sandwich, a cup of coffee, and a table for me to sit and enjoy the meal. I saw you put the price of my food in the cash register." "So you started your own business?" old Jack asked. "No, not exactly. That very afternoon I got a job. I worked my way up, then I started my own business." She opened her purse and pulled out a business card. "Please pay a visit to the personal director of my company. I will talk to him now. I am sure there is something in my office for which we can use your help. We can even pay you a certain amount for your salary in advance." Fighting back tears, Jack asked, "How can I ever repay your kindness?" "You don't have to," the woman answered. "Thank Jesus he led me to you." "Thank you for all your help, officer," she said to him as they both walked out the door. "On contrary, Miss Eddy, thank you. I saw a miracle today. And of course, thank you for the coffee." She frowned. "I forgot to ask you whether you used cream or sugar. That's black." "I do use cream and more sugar than is good for my health," he replied. I'm sorry, she said. Please don't be. I have a feeling that this coffee is going to taste as sweet as sugar, he replied with a smile. Moral of the story: no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Yeah, as I said at the beginning of this story is kind of like connected to the story of the teacher's hand, where the teacher that said that just because something is insignificant to you, you never know how much it helps you, how much it helps someone else. In this story, this old man helped this woman, and years later, she was able to repay his kindness. So, because of his kindness, things got better for her, and she went to repay the favor. Because he could have thrown her out on the street because she was a hungry bum, but he didn't. And then when he was in the same situation that she was, she came and helped him. So, you might think, like I said before, you might think that what you do doesn't help anybody, but the littlest thing can help people. And your kindness will always come back to you. It might not come back right away. It might take years to come back to you. You might have forgotten that you ever did it. But always do help people when you can. You don't know whose life you'll change, and it will always come back to you. There is a Wiccan and pagan law of sorts, about threefold. Anything you do gets brought back to you threefold. If you're cruel to people, you get cruelty back threefold, 3 times worse. If you're good to people, things come back to you 3 times better. But, yeah, help who you can. Not just for them, but for yourself. You never know how much you help that person, and you'll need help one day. I do cashiering as a day job, and I have seen people pay it forward. People pay for other people's groceries, and all they ask for them is when they see someone who needs help, to do it. Pay it forward. But that is all for this week's sermon. You probably noticed for the sermon that I am editing the sermons a lot more, having music and a header and ending. I hope you like them. And remember, before I end, High Priestess Yolanda would like to do a sermon about Wiccan culture, because she is a Wicca, and I think she was talking about Samhain or Halloween. But yes, she is planning on performing a sermon sometime in the future, and so look forward to that. And remember, when we all come together, the possibilities are endless. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.